In April 2014, Nigeria's GDP was rebased and its economy was estimated to be the biggest in Africa. In May this year, GDP growth crashed to a 25-year low, inflation went up and the Naira plunged, becoming the worst performing currency in Africa. In July, the finance minister warned that Nigeria is technically in recession. By some measurements, Nigeria has been overtaken by South Africa as the biggest economy on the continent. Growth projections have been lowered to a meager 1.3% from an initial 3.8%. This is a far cry from 2013, 2014, and even the disappointment of 2015. With such turbulent activity, it is not clear what the future holds for the giant of Africa. The potential is there, but volatility always lingers. Apart from oil, most of the success of the Nigerian economy is through the ingenuity of the population against the stifling nature of the state. The success of Nigeria's entertainment industry and enduring performance of the agriculture sector is testament to this perseverance, but the latter industry is always graded as must do better. President Buhari, who was elected in 2015, promised to fight corruption, rein in Boko Haram, reduce the power supply deficit, and strengthen the value of the Naira. Despite having previous experience as president, he may have underestimated the extent of the task at hand. He has made self-sufficiency the central theme of his economic policy and has praised the Made in Nigeria slogan. It makes sense in theory that the reliance on imports drives down the currency value and reduces demand for local produce, but a more effective policy would be to encourage greater industrialization in order to turn raw materials, imported or locally sourced, into manufactured goods and look to export them. It's just a suggestion. Nigeria has a population of about 182 million and is the 21st richest country by GDP. It is a member of OPEC and ECOWAS, as well as GGG, MINT, D8, Eagles and Next 11, and up until recently, it has been one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Growth and demographics have led economists to project her to be in the top largest economies by 2050. Nigeria has one of the biggest petroleum industries in the world and over 30% of Africa's proven natural gas reserves. However, the fall in the price of oil in the global market has caused a headache for the central government and central bank. The central bank initially tried to keep the Naira afloat, insisting on a peg of 197 to 199 Naira to the dollar, until June this year. Foreign exchange restrictions were imposed to tackle the reliance on foreign imports. The currency dropped 40% once the dollar peg was abandoned, and now it's 315 Naira to $1, and dollars sell for about 470 Naira on the parallel market. Most recently, Moody's reported that the country's 5 biggest banks were facing common credit challenges related to the slowdown in Nigeria's oil and gas dependent economy. Measures taken to protect the currency have not had the intended effect. Nigeria is particularly sensitive to the slump in oil prices as the petroleum industry contributes almost 80% of the country's export earnings. The status quo has pretty much been to use oil from a small area in the south and redistribute it centrally. Buhari's slow response and blaming the previous administration for all the problems should also be noted. The state of the currency is testament to his procrastination. Away from the issues of corruption and financial mismanagement that have muzzled the country's potential, Nigeria seriously needs to address its oil dependency. Diversifying the economy should stop being a slogan and instantly become a reality. The former agriculture minister, Akinwumi Adesina, coined the concept of the agriculture paradox. Africa is a continent with enormous potential for agricultural growth, yet one where food insecurity and malnutrition are widespread and persistent. Agriculture is neglected. Despite being one of the biggest industries in the country, less than 2% of the national budget is allocated to it. Certainly a lot more can be done to further industrialize the industry, but by now looking towards agriculture has become a cliche. Key to Nigeria moving out of the middle-income country bracket is her ability to solve her power problem. In his inauguration speech, President Buhari said, "No single cause can be identified to explain Nigeria's poor economic performance over the years than the power situation. It is a national shame that an economy of 180 million generates only 4,000 megawatts and distributes even less." Power cuts are all too familiar, and around half of all Nigerians don't have access to grid-connected electricity. This situation stems from a history of neglect and inefficiency, leading the government to privatize electricity generation and distribution. The national grid remains in state control, and the privatization is yet to reap the expected rewards. Despite the small improvements in output, the country has only been able to generate half of the combined nameplate capacity of its power plants. Many facilities need further upgrades or have been vandalized. Temporary diesel-powered generation is still heavily relied upon as the national grid supply simply cannot match demand. Nigeria's current per capita power consumption is only 151 kilowatt hours, which is among the lowest in the world. Buhari's insular economic policy and Made in Nigeria are a hard sell when the people don't have electrical power to make anything. The infrastructure problems within the power sector are analogous of other public goods, roads, bridges and water supply. Nigeria has very high growth potential, and up until recently, most forecasters only had good things to say about her future. Whilst projections may need to be adjusted, there is no denying what Nigeria is capable of, even with the structural limitations. These limitations come in the form of corruption, financial mismanagement, the lack of accountability and rule of law, militant attacks, and stale policy making. The long-term solutions are well documented: diversification, the end of graft, and investing in infrastructure. The short-term solutions are far more delicate, but reform is certainly needed. The loans will only go so far to plug the budget deficit and solve the balance of payments. The import ban may turn out to be genius, but so far it looks misguided. This not-so-splendid isolation may do more harm than good. It's rare you get a second chance in politics, and Buhari is proving this to be a good convention.